Success isn't just about getting better strategies. It's not just about optimizing your morning routine or leveling up your focus. If you don't address your emotional blind spots, they will sabotage you quietly, patiently, relentlessly from your unconscious. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. And emotional mastery is learning how to face those hidden parts of yourself, to feel what's been unfelt, to stop dragging around all the old, unprocessed pain like some invisible sandbags.
Welcome to Beyond Success, the podcast for high achievers seeking deeper meaning, fulfillment, and purpose. Now, here's your host, world-renowned leadership coach and therapist, David Tian, PhD.
If you're intelligent, driven, and still find yourself struggling emotionally, this episode is going to hit home because it's not that you're lazy or broken or weak. It's that no one's ever taught you how to deal with what's actually running the show, your emotions. Most high achievers don't realize this, but emotional mastery involves a set of skills that separates those who look successful or happy from those who feel successful or happy. You can have the titles, the income, the perfect-looking life, and still feel like something's off. You're either stuck, reactive, or just flat. You tell yourself it's a phase. You power through. But deep down, you know you're running out of steam. Here's the thing. Logic isn't the enemy. I'm not here to bash thinking. In fact, there is an internal logic to emotions. Cognitive therapy works, up to a point. Problem is, most people stop there. They try to fix their emotional struggles with mental gymnastics. But what they really need is a deeper kind of understanding, one that goes beneath the thinking brain, the thinking conscious cognition, and into the parts of you that you've avoided for years. Because if you don't learn to face those uncomfortable emotions, if you keep defaulting to avoidance, to distraction, to numbing out, those emotions don't just disappear. They start hijacking your behavior, quietly, subtly, until one day you realize you're not living from choice anymore. You're just reacting, or you've just gone numb. If that's been happening to you, if you've been wondering why success feels hollow, or why you can't stop spiraling in moments that you know better, then listen closely, because this episode's for you. I'm David Tian. For almost the past 2 decades, I've been helping hundreds of thousands of people from over 87 countries find fulfillment, success, and happiness in their personal and professional lives. In this episode, I've got 3 main points, and here's the first. Intellectual insight alone is not enough. And this one will hit hard for the intelligent, driven crowd, because when you've built your life on your intelligence, your ability to figure things out or solve problems or win games that other people don't even know they're playing, then it's natural to assume that you can think your way through anything. But emotions don't work like spreadsheets. You can't just rationalize your way out of feeling triggered or anxious or ashamed or really pissed off. Understanding why you feel the way you feel doesn't magically on its own stop you from feeling it. I can't tell you how many achievers I've coached who could explain their problems better than most therapists. They knew the theory. They could quote Carl Jung or Richard Schwartz and toss around words like attachment styles or inner child like it was nothing. They knew exactly where their triggers came from in their past. They could psychoanalyze the crap out of themselves. But knowing didn't stop them from lashing out at their spouses or freezing up before a big presentation or feeling crushed when they got rejected or criticized. Their life looked great on paper, but inside they were still getting run by the same emotional patterns that they thought they had outgrown. Because emotional mastery isn't a knowledge problem. It's a skill problem. It's the difference between intellectually knowing how a guitar works and being able to pick it up and play it well. Knowing on its own isn't enough. Mastery happens in the doing. It happens when you're feeling rage start to bubble up, and instead of snapping, you recognize it, breathe through it, and stay grounded, and stay present. It happens when that old pit of toxic shame opens up in your stomach, and instead of spiraling or checking out, you stay with it and let it move through you without letting it run the show or take you over. It happens when anxiety hits and you don't bulldoze through it or numb it out. Instead, you stay present with it and wait until it stops controlling you. This stuff doesn't get wired in by reading books or just listening to more podcasts, ironically. You have to practice it. You have to train your nervous system the same way you would train your muscles if you were learning a new sport. One client I worked with, let's call him Victor. He was a classic overthinker. He was a brilliant guy, relatively young, at a very senior position in a major tech firm. He had read every major self-help book you could name. He had a personal therapist. He journaled every day. He meditated every day. He did gratitude lists. You name it. He had a system for it. But he still gets sideswiped by his emotions. What seemed to him like random waves of panic before investor meetings, or sleepless nights over employee drama, or silent resentment toward his partners that eventually boiled over into nasty confrontations in the office. And every time he'd beat himself up, saying to himself, I know better. I know what's happening. Why can't I stop it? Because he'd been trying to fight emotional reactions with intellect only. He was stuck in his head. And emotions don't care about your intellectual understanding when they're firing at full blast. So with Victor, we started simple. Body awareness drills, breath work, learning to feel the early signals before the emotional storm hits full force and overwhelms him. Learning to sit with discomfort without needing to fix it or flee from it. If you know my program, Emotional Mastery, we went through a lot of those meditative exercises. And at first, he hated it. He resisted. His head, his brain kept looking for patterns to decode or solutions to solve or outward steps to follow. But slowly, he realized something deeper. The goal wasn't to solve the emotion or to resolve the emotion or to make the emotion go away. Instead, it was to first allow it, to then be able to regulate it, and then integrate it without losing himself in it. And over time, the panic attacks became a lot more manageable. The confrontations didn't escalate. You could feel the surge of anger or fear, and instead of being completely dragged under by it, he could hold it like you'd hold a medicine ball at the gym. Heavy, but still manageable. And that's a sign of emotional mastery. Not being a robot who never feels, but being able to stay connected to yourself and to others even when your emotional system is lighting up. And if you're relying only on intellect to get you there, you're setting yourself up for extreme frustration because the mind alone can't carry you through the emotional fire. You need a different set of muscles. You need emotional endurance, emotional titration to be able to turn it on and off or more intense or less intense. You need emotional agility. You need emotional presence. The good news is that all of these are trainable. No matter how stuck you feel right now, no matter how reactive you've been in the past, you can learn, practice, and master these skills. But you have to approach it like a real skill, not just something you think about or understand in your head. You have to build it into your body, into your nervous system, into your daily way of being. And once you do, breakthroughs happen naturally. That's when you stop getting derailed by old triggers. That's when success stops feeling hollow. That's when relationships stop feeling like landmines that you have to tiptoe around or like you're walking on eggshells. Now let's move to the second point, which is about the hidden emotional sabotage of achievers or high performers. This one's really sneaky because when you're smart and ambitious, the world tends to reward you for pushing through, for grinding it out, for showing up no matter what's going on inside you. Most people don't see the cost at first, and it's often not clear until later down the line, until it's already showing up in places that you don't expect. Here's how it works. You hit a wall emotionally, let's say anxiety or anger or fear, and instead of dealing with it, you push it aside. You bury it under more work, or more wins, or more distractions. You tell yourself you're being resilient, focused, disciplined. And on the surface, it looks like you are. Like you're still closing deals or hitting your numbers or posting the right pictures, giving the right speeches, and you're still forcing yourself to show up. And everyone's impressed. But underneath all that performance, the emotional pressure just keeps building. And because it's unresolved, it has to leak out somewhere. Sometimes it leaks out as procrastination. You wake up, and instead of jumping into action, you find yourself scrolling your phone like a zombie, zoning out, half-assing the things that you used to crush. Sometimes it leaks out as burnout, like you're exhausted, but you don't even know quite why. It's like your body just pulls the emergency brakes without asking your permission. Sometimes it shows up in your relationships. You get really irritable, impatient, snappy over stupid little things, and it's a surprise even to yourself. Or you withdraw because deep down you're too tired or resentful to deal with real connection. Other times it sneaks out as compulsive habits like overeating or overdrinking or overworking or overtraining, anything to avoid sitting still long enough to feel what's really going on inside you. And when it gets really bad, it shows up as this chronic, low-grade dissatisfaction that's just in the background that never goes away. You can't even point to a clear problem. On the outside, your life looks good. Objectively, you maybe even know it's good. And yet, it actually feels flat on the inside, like it's meaningless. And then you feel like you're running on autopilot. This isn't a personality flaw. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's because unresolved emotions don't just disappear. They go underground. And when you ignore them long enough, they start running the show from behind the scenes. Let me illustrate with a client of mine. We'll call him Eric. And he was like a textbook example of this. He was in his early 30s when he came to me, was very successful right out of the gate, had a very high-paying position in a major tech company, and he lived in a penthouse downtown. He had designer furniture, he had a Tesla, he was partying at VIP tables. From the outside, it looked like he was living the life, right? The guy was miserable. He couldn't sleep without taking something. He couldn't go a weekend without either numbing out with weed or diving into hours-long, days-long binges of video games and junk food. He couldn't hold a relationship longer than a few months before it blew up into a mess of blame and guilt. When he came to me, he said, "I don't get it. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. Why do I still feel like I'm barely hanging on?" And at first, he thought he had like a time management problem or a stress management problem. He kept looking for hacks and tools and frameworks and productivity systems. And yes, we tweaked a few things to get him some breathing room, but the real problem wasn't his use of time, definitely wasn't time itself, and it wasn't his tactics for organizing his time. It was that he had spent his entire adult life running from his own emotional reality. He trained himself to believe that emotions were a distraction, that they were a weakness, that if he just stayed disciplined enough, then he could outwork the parts of himself that felt scared or insecure or angry or lonely. But the thing is, these parts don't get outworked. They just get louder in the background until they start undermining your ability to be present or to love or to create or to even enjoy what you've built. With Eric, once we started digging deeper under the surface, he found that he was carrying the years of repressed grief from the death of his father, a grief he never let himself fully feel. He was still trying to earn the approval of a parent who wasn't even around anymore. He was still fighting battles that had nothing to do with his current life. And what really came as a shock to him was that as he actually made space to feel what he had been avoiding, all the downstream problems started to ease up. His sleep improved. His compulsive habits lost their grip. His relationships deepened. He stopped needing to prove something with every achievement. Because once the emotional energy stopped getting trapped inside him, it stopped leaking into the places he didn't want it to. This is the part that no one tells you. Success isn't just about getting better strategies. It's not just about optimizing your morning routine or leveling up your focus. If you don't address your emotional blind spots, they will sabotage you quietly, patiently, relentlessly from your unconscious. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. And emotional mastery is learning how to face those hidden parts of yourself, to feel what's been unfelt, to stop dragging around all the old, unprocessed pain like some invisible sandbags. And when you do that, you don't just feel better. You operate from a place of wholeness, clarity, power. And the best part is you stop living like a robot, chasing the next hit of external validation. You start living from the inside out.
Many high achievers struggle when it comes to managing their emotions or navigating their relationships, and they hit a wall when it comes to emotional mastery. Maybe you've noticed that stress, frustration, or anger is seeping into your personal or professional life, or you feel disconnected from those you care about. That's where David Tien's Emotional Mastery Program comes in. It's based on peer-reviewed, evidence-backed therapeutic methods to help you find happiness, love, and real fulfillment. Learn how to break free from the emotional roller coaster and start thriving in every area of your life. You can find out more at davidtianphd.com/emotional mastery. That's DAVIDTIANPHD.com/emotional mastery.
Okay, so now we move to the third and final point of this episode, which is that the real reason you feel stuck or reactive isn't what you think it is. It's not the deadline. It's not the client. It's not your spouse's tone of voice. It's not your last ex who was crazy. It's something much older. Surface emotions like anger, frustration, anxiety, these are just symptoms. They're the smoke, not the fire. The real fires are the core emotional wounds underneath. Stuff like feeling unworthy or feeling abandoned, feeling like no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. These wounds aren't just logical. They don't care how many degrees you have or how much money you make. They live in the more emotional parts of your brain that are mostly accessed in your unconscious, that were wired way before you even knew how to spell your name. Most of them, for most people anyway. And when they get triggered, you go right back into these old unconscious patterns. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how high your IQ is, no matter how much you know better. I've seen it over and over. Achievers who've outperformed everyone else around them. But when something pokes at that core wound, like getting criticized, or like feeling left out, or like not getting enough recognition, then they get triggered and they spiral. Maybe it's not visible to many people on the outside, but inside, they're like 6 years old again, trying to prove they're good enough to dad or mom or the teacher or older brother or sister. And instead of dealing with the root issues, most of them just keep chasing surface solutions, Band-Aid solutions. They think if they can just be more productive or more disciplined or more stoic, then they'll outrun the feeling. But that never works. Not for long. You can't hustle your way out of toxic shame. You can't optimize your way out of abandonment. You can't checklist your way out of unworthiness. No matter how much you achieve, if that wound is still festering underneath, it's going to color everything you do. It's going to drain the joy out of your wins. It's going to turn relationship into battles that you can't explain. It's going to keep you stuck in cycles of burnout and dissatisfaction, even while you're crossing milestones that many people only dream about. One of my clients, let's call him Jason, was a classic example. When he came to me, he was in his early 40s. He was in tech and had had his first big exit and was sitting pretty on some pretty big payouts. And he should have been on top of the world. Many people would have thought he's the poster child for success. But instead, he fell into a dark spiral, depressed, isolated, angry at himself for not being happier. Then he found me, and we started working together. He kept framing this as a transition problem, like he just needed a new goal, a new purpose, a new project, or a new mission. But when we got underneath that surface level, what we found were massive wounds around not being enough, not feeling worthy. Growing up, Jason's father only showed him love when he succeeded, like when he got good grades or won awards or beat the other kids. He concluded from this that love was conditional. Approval was something that you had to earn. And Jason learned early that if you're not winning, then you're nothing. So he spent the next 30 years winning, or trying to, at school, at work, in life, racking up victories to fill a hole that couldn't be filled by trophies or bank balances. When he had the big exit event, and really finally had nothing left to prove, he still didn't feel free. he felt empty. Because the whole time he was chasing worthiness outside of himself, and the wound underneath never healed. When Jason finally stopped running, when he allowed himself to feel the underlying sadness and the fear and the anger that he'd been holding onto since he was a young kid, then he had major breakthroughs. Not overnight, not with some magic affirmations, but gradually, steadily through deep emotional work. He didn't need a new mission, it turned out. He needed a new relationship with himself. The thing is, this isn't unique to Jason by any means. I could have called upon examples from any number of clients. And if you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance some part of you is still trying to outrun an old wound too. That's been true of all of us. Maybe it's the fear of not being enough. Maybe it's the terror of being abandoned if you stop performing. Or maybe it's the shame of feeling like you'll never measure up, no matter how much you work or achieve. And if you've been trying to solve that by working harder, or being more disciplined, or learning more, or pushing yourself faster, then you already know it doesn't really work. Not for long, anyway. The real work, the work that most people avoid, is learning first to feel those old wounds without getting swallowed by them, and building the emotional strength to stay present with the emotions that hurt instead of running from them or trying to numb them out. Look, I know this isn't sexy. It's not the kind of thing you post about on Instagram and get 100 likes with. But it's the only work that matters if you actually want to live and feel free. If you actually want to feel the wins instead of just trying to chase the next one. If you actually want to build relationships that are real and authentic and genuine, not just performative and conditional. True emotional mastery means diving deeper than most people ever do. It means trading the illusion of control for the power of presence. It means expanding your emotional range instead of numbing out and shrinking it. And the good news is you can learn it, practice it, and master it, no matter how stuck you feel right now, no matter how much you've armored up over the years, no matter how many times you've told yourself, I'm fine, while secretly feeling empty inside. You can create this, you can build this, you can heal. You can move beyond survival and start actually living and thriving. And this is what we train for in emotional mastery. So let's pull this together. We covered 3 big points today. First, intellectual insight alone isn't enough. You can analyze your emotions inside and out, but if you haven't trained your body and nervous system to actually feel and process them, you're going to keep getting blindsided, undermined, sabotaged. Emotional mastery isn't about simply knowing. It's about doing, feeling, and staying present under pressure. Second, we looked at how high performers get sabotaged emotionally, often without even realizing it. When you power through stress or bury your emotions or avoid facing what's real, then it leaks out in procrastination, in burnout, in strained relationships, in that low-grade emptiness that you can't fix by simply ticking off another goal. And third, we got to the real root, unresolved emotional core wounds. Not the surface-level stress, but the deeper stuff that's driving it, feelings of unworthiness or abandonment or toxic shame, which quietly drive your patterns until you have the courage to face them head-on and heal them. Now, if you just go back to pushing harder, optimizing faster, or distracting yourself louder, then your life won't fall apart tomorrow. It'll happen gradually, quietly. You probably won't notice it like a frog being boiled, right? You'll grind harder for smaller highs. You'll feel emptier after each win. Relationships will get harder. Sleep will get worse. The things you once loved will start to feel like chores. And eventually, you'll wonder how you ended up living a life that looks maybe good on paper, but feels hollow inside. Or you could do the inner work. You could train emotional strength the way you've trained every other skill you're proud of. You could finally build the capacity to handle what's real instead of running from it. You could stop dragging old pain into every new opportunity. You could wake up excited again, actually excited. You could stop performing and start thriving. You could build real connections, relationships that don't feel like another thing to manage. You could lead from a place of wholeness instead of fear. You could finally be free. That's the road I'm inviting you to walk. Thank you so much for listening. If this has helped you in any way, please share it with anyone else that you think could benefit from it. If you liked it, hit a like or give it a good rating on whatever platform you're hearing this on. If you have any feedback whatsoever, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment or send me a message. I'd love to get it. Thank you again for listening. I look forward to welcoming you to the next episode. Until then, David Tien, signing out.